Well, Bitcoin, what can we see from this chart here? Two likely scenarios. And I just posted something in Moonstream Academy about this. We'll go deeper here, of course. So, we have this big resistance area at the old high here around 105K to 109K. I've been saying for some time now, I'm not going to really be fully bullish till we break above that and retest it. So scenario one up here, if we wanted to label it, and just kind of put a label on it there, scenario one is that we can push up, break to new all-time high, come back, retest that, and then go. And that would be ideal because we want to turn resistance into support. That's generally how things go. Not always for Bitcoin. So without creating scenario three, sometimes, and you should know this, in the past, Bitcoin has just kept on going. But for me, so how would you play that in scenario one? If you're holding some Bitcoin now, perfectly fine. Ideally, you'd have some powder dry for buying a breakout. So I would probably buy the breakout on a closing basis, and with a little powder dry, set a limit order right around 109, 110K for a quick retest and then go. So that kind of bridges both of the opportunities there. And this is something just over a lot of time and years of trading that served me well. So, and I'll show you on Solana, I'll get to that, but I did that same scenario, and I've recommended a couple of this strategy to a couple of you privately and private clients about that because, some of you are saying, well, what should I do now? And since it's uncertain, then we really need to kind of play both sides. Now, scenario two, which is slightly different, as this one down here, where we push up to this kind of midpoint, 106, 107K, the old all-time highs, and roll over. Let me turn off the Bollinger Band just so it's not quite as messy and busy in here. I'll move this Fathom thing out of the way so we can see a little better. All right, so scenario two, I'll just type that in right here. If I could spell today. Scenario two is we push up into this resistance area and roll over and reject. So whether it's 106, maybe even 107K, this scenario fairly likely as well. Now, if that happens, and I'll tell you which scenario I'm leaning towards, but we don't know. It's at these inflection points, these mid-level inflection points, it's harder. It's easier at these sort of oversold inflection points down here when Bitcoin came down to 76K, 78K, the CME gap. We had buyers here. We had the early reversal indicator. That was pretty clear to me. This is the bottom's in, and that's when I was buying back. I sold some at 106K, bought some back here. Doing okay. I'm heavier in Solana, but at any rate, when we get it to these levels, it's a little bit harder. We don't have as clear signals. We have a big sell block here, which is our clearest signal we should roll over. And we're getting an early reversal indicator right in there a couple days ago. This is, of course, the daily. Things are a bit overbought. Looks like they'll roll over short term on the daily, but there is a lot of strength in this market. And it's difficult. I think Diogenes pointed out ETFs are selling again. So we just don't want to second guess these red boxes, right? And I might flip-flop a bit on which scenario I think is more likely, because on the one hand, well, let me just finish scenario two. If we reject here, it would be a triple top rejection. Breakouts usually happen on the third or fifth attempt, usually, not always, but like 90% of the time. So if we do reject here, likely we're going to come back down. And how far down we go, it's hard to say. Normally we see these buy money flow blocks as hold. So the bullish scenario is it comes down maybe around 100K, big round number, and then turns up. 21-day exponential moving average rising, 50-day rising above the 200-day. Simple moving average, the blue line. All right. Now, we're going to look at the weekly because that's going to give us our better bet. But one thing I want to point out here is we've steadily been declining in volume along the way up. That is a cause of concern. And, that's some divergence we want to pay attention to. If prices are going higher and volume's declining, that's generally not a good sign. And whereas when we go back a ways here and we see these kind of in volume increasing as we were going higher to the new all-time high, that was good. And then slowly this was also another early warning signal in hindsight. That there's hindsight thing again. Prices pushing up again, double top, volume declining. And without looking at it, I can tell you back in 2021, same thing happened. So these are the things we want to be paying attention to and really being careful of, because our tendency is we want to believe that everything is going higher. Not sure how that got moved over there. And we're going to blast off to new highs. We don't want to be married to those scenarios and confirmation bias. Certainly everything would appear that we will go higher. A lot of people are saying, this is irreversible. This is going to happen. I think inevitable, I've heard. And I still think we go to 150K-ish. And by around, June, July is possible. But less possible if we roll over here. So I really want to be nimble here. And, so the answer is, I don't know. It's harder to tell when we're not at a key overbought inflection point. Now, if we do come down and roll over and blow past this and come below sub 100K again, likely bounce point right in this range here. The 200-day SMA would flatten out. We have this line here around 92K, which was prior resistance here, then became support, 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 until it broke, became resistance, and then we broke up above it. Now we haven't retested that. So from market structure standpoint, it would be better in some ways, in many ways, to come back down and then really launch off there. If we come down and maybe into this buy zone and get another ERI and really launch up. Right now, it's anybody's guess. It's just, so let's look for more clues. Over to the weekly time frame. And I'm not sure what that thing is over there, so we'll take that away. Weekly time frame, again, declining volume, declining volume. So, we have to kind of keep that in mind and not buy into the hype cycle, which I don't feel has really started yet, but we're really watching carefully for these bigger numbers. Tom Lee's calling for $1 million Bitcoin this year. Kathy Woods now revised her 2030 estimate to 2.5 million. So, again, all these big fund owners and Bitcoin owners really try and lay the groundwork for their exit strategy and exit liquidity. So there's some degree of that. But also, look, helping to do their part in getting everyone excited about things. Now, I also mentioned too, by the way, and I'm going to the Bitcoin conference in a couple weeks, 2 weeks to be exact. Now, generally, there's kind of a push up into that and then a kind of a sell off. So that would sort of fit this scenario too, the sell down scenario. People get all excited into the Bitcoin conference, and then it's like, yeah, but maybe let's just sell here. So that's Bitcoin. Now, before you guys anyone panics, however, what happens when Bitcoin dominance goes down? And what we see there is, that could maybe be the launch of alt season. So it's really tricky. It's hard to know here because, altcoin season usually follows Bitcoin, and once it turns down, money flows into tier ones, ETH, SOL, Link, Chain, those are the big three, and then rotate into the mid caps and small caps. So we don't have a lot of time. So on the one hand, we might be getting close to altcoin season, but the downside of that is Bitcoin season's over. Our signals aren't showing that. I'll pull up a chart. We're still, altcoin season's pointing higher. But I think we had altcoin weekend last weekend. We're not in altcoin season yet. So, the TLDR is sit tight. If you have some powder dry, I'd buy these buy blocks most likely, and with stop losses below. Hey, this is Brett from Moonstream. If you'd like to learn more about our pro trading signals or our live classes every Wednesday or our Retire Rich program, go over to moonstream.io/start.